Hello, everyone. I'm Christina D. Eskridge, and welcome to the Elevate Winter Series Part 2, Health of Our Planet, People, and Pocketbooks. If you joined us last month, you'll remember the fantastic experience
Hello, everyone. I'm Christina D. Eskridge, and welcome to the Elevate
technology.
Winter Series Part 2, Health of Our Planet, People, and Pocketbooks. If you joined us last month, you'll remember the fantastic experience
Hello, everyone. Oops. Sorry, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. I am obviously live streaming to YouTube and ended up having my live stream on, so you could hear my voice twice, and there is about 15 to 20-second delay from what I'm doing to what you're all experiencing. So I apologize for that hiccup, and let's get back on track. What I was saying is, if you joined us last month, you'll remember that we had a fantastic experience of The Fun Shack by Chelsea D. We had an engaging panel discussion afterwards about Black women's reproductive health. Tonight, we'll continue this unique format of live performance followed by a panel of experts to answer your questions and dive a little deeper. Originally, I am from the unceded lands of the Muwekma people, also known as Oakland, California. Tonight, I come to you live from the stolen lands of the Wappinger and Munsee Lenape people, or Harlem, New York. I elevate and honor all Indigenous communities, past, present, and future. Audience, I'd like to encourage you all to learn a little bit more about the Indigenous lands you reside on. Please check out the link in the chat and interact with the map. Let us know where you're from and what people lived there before. I'd also like to encourage everyone to be present this evening. Get comfortable, get a snack, get a beverage. It's a play after all. Let's all take a deep breath together. I need it after that little hiccup. A lot has likely happened to you today, but for these next 60-ish minutes, there's nowhere to be but present. Our play tonight is The Morality of Broccoli by Jamie Roach. He's performing and he wrote the play. Yes, a one-man show on Zoom. We'll go on a journey with Ryan, a man with a date, a real-life date that has been arranged in the year 2020. As we all know, that's an incredible feat. There's only a quick stop at the grocery store that's standing between our conscious shopper and a night with the possible love of his life. It should be simple. Let's see how it unfolds. I want to thank you all for joining us for this inaugural winter series. We are honored to bring you part 2, Health of Our Planet, People, and Pocketbooks, with a performance of The Morality of Broccoli by Jamie Roach. Without further ado, let's get on with the show. A note from the creative team. You'll notice a portion of the show was pre-recorded. Please do not stress while watching this footage. There were no vegetables harmed in the making of this film. This footage was captured during the COVID-19 pandemic with all COVID-compliant safety measures taken. Additionally, all items touched, groped, or fondled were purchased by the creative team to ensure our germs stayed with us. We've been eating a lot of salads since. Enjoy The Morality of Broccoli by Jamie Roach.
Hey, so excited to finally meet you in person. It's really sweet of you to cook, Swoon. uh, just to ease your mind, I haven't left my house since getting tested, so totally negative and good to go. Okay, I'm on my way. Should be there in about 20. Oh, to answer your question, no allergies. I'm easy. I mean, just healthy. Okay, see you soon.
Just healthy? Ah, he is so cute. What time did he call? That was 5 minutes ago? Okay, I gotta hurry. First stop, tomatoes. Quick trip to the supermarket. Market trip real quick. Rhymes. Well, perfect rhyme. Okay, I already have some bougie pasta at home, so I'll just grab some salad stuff and... What time is it? That clock's wrong. a little appetizer, and I'll be out of here. It should take like 10 minutes tops. On the flip-flops, you don't stops. Tomatoes. Off the vine, only $1.99. Rhymes. Classy. Boom. I'm on a roll. Okay. What kind of greens? Kale's passe, right? Is it passe? What is it now? Microgreens? Wait, what's wrong with me? A passe vegetable? I am feeding right into the system. Whatever. Kale's too bitter anyways. Oh, hey buddy, what's your name? What's your deal? What is this? Marty? Marty the robot. Okay, good to meet you, Marty. Spinach. Did I get any texts? No. You go. Come on. The spinach works. But why is it so expensive? What is this? Grass-fed grass? Organic, 3 times washed, done. Saves me time. Ugh. This packaging is so ridiculous. This amount of plastic does not justify this amount of spinach. Such a crime, like stealing from Paul to pay Peter, or whatever that expression is. I should get the unpackaged spinach, but then I have to wash it and don't think about it. Don't. Unbox the spinach. Beatbox the high pitch. Beatbox the... Look, I'll recycle it, even though I secretly know how much fossil fuel energy it takes to recycle, and it's a 4. It'll never actually get recycled. I mean, I've heard at most 1,000 years for plastic to decompose, but I've also heard 450, so that's an easier pill to swallow, that I'm only committing this plastic container to a lifetime in a landfill slightly longer than this country's existence, than an entire millennia, to save myself 5 minutes of washing the leaves. Just checking into that reality. Whatever, everybody does it. Moving on. Well, maybe the pre-washed spinach gives like more jobs to people, but I've heard those jobs basically enslave people. Let's face it, we're all enslaved to this capitalist control, right? Sacrificing ourselves at the feet of the corporate gods. But gods forbid we suggest another way, like socialism or communism, even though Jesus was practically a commie. But I have no idea how a borderless society would actually work, and it's probably a privileged opinion, so forget it. I'll get the box because it'll make up for the time I just wasted having this argument with myself. Next. I have no idea what he likes in his salads. Let me text him. If you were a salad topping, what would you be? Cheesy! Speaking of, just a little cheesy for an appetizer. Excuse me, Marty. Keep up the good work. Someone glued on those eyes. Just a little something light, some cheese for the enzymes and bacterial digestive stuff. As long as it's super organic, okay? Too many sad cow documentaries to know that artisanal and all natural are not gonna cut it here. Gotta look for those logos of no's, boys. No hormones, no pesticides, antibiotics, no rennet, no GMOs, RBST, RBGH, notorious RBG. R.I.P. Okay, I'll just get the Swiss Miss. But would it be better to get like a Swiss from Switzerland, which probably has less regulations, making it a more holistic cheese making, or to get the Swiss from California, which has less of a carbon footprint? Well, they're probably about the same distance from here. I mean, what? California is 5 hours by plane, and Switzerland's like... But are they flying it, or... What's worse, polluting the oceans or polluting the air? Are they driving it from California? Is that... I mean, just getting cheese leaves a carbon footprint with all the cow farts and deforestation, am I right? I finally go meatless to keep buying cheese. You know what? No, patience, okay? I will be patient with myself. I'm doing the best I can. I deserve to enjoy a little cheese, just like Barefoot Contessa, okay? Wait, it says grass-fed, but I don't see that it's free-range. You'd figure they'd go together unless they're like shoveling grass into the cages. But I trust them. I mean, it seems like a small family farm. Unless this is just some stock image of intergenerational blondes in overalls. And there's no diversity. I guess that's a lot to ask a farm family. Although, I hope these blondies aren't some hyper heteronormative, racist farm family entrenched in the deepest patriarchy. I'll just have to chance it and look up their politics later. What time is it? I have to hurry. Oh, hello, notifications. Don't get distracted. Come on, Ryan. Let's go. Pull it together. All the swiping and sexting, and it comes down to an actual tangible date in the year 2020, and you're gonna blow it over cheese? Next! What time? Oh, shit. He's almost there? Now there's no time to shower! Okay, broccoli. He wants broccoli. Okay, produce aisle, and I am out. Broccoli. Inorganic. Organic. Wait. $5 a pound? For broccoli. Come on. Plus, it's a total scam that they sell the broccoli on their useless stems. Show me. Show me the person that eats this part of the broccoli. It just doubles the weight on the scales, and of my shame, when I throw the stems away instead of composting them. Why are you sold like this? You are so damn heavy. Heavy veggie. Rhymes? Whatever. Just buy it. It's his favorite, okay? Wait. Who likes broccoli in their salad? Red flag? Red flag? Heavy veggie! Heavy veg! Just get the organic, inorganic, non-organic, unorganic, whatever. Only $1.49. Just this time. Rhymes. Oh, yeah, no stem. There you go. Gotta love that. I mean, everything else is organic. It'll probably just get masked. Plus, let me check. Like broccoli, like one of those tough veggies that doesn't take on the pesticides as much? Or is it more susceptible because there's more crevices to hide in? Look, if I get one thing that's not organic, it's not going to kill us now. I mean, would it just contribute to the 800 other carcinogens in the store? I mean, I have good health insurance and always do preventative shit, but he's freelance, so is he on Obamacare? Does that even still exist? What's the future for him? What's the future for us? I mean, how do we know if we're meant to be together? Will this go beyond this third date? Checkmate, Rhymes. How do we know if they're Mr. Right or Mrs. Right or insert appropriate gender or gender fluid? Right? I mean, should we even be monogamous our whole lives? Or is this just another false societal projection of all that's been... You'd be the only inorganic thing in the salad. How would you feel? Look at me. Oh my God. I am so far down the rabbit hole. Okay, I have to go. Who cares? It's not going to matter 20, 30, 40 years into the future. The repercussions of this inorganic broccoli's pesticides are going to be so irrelevant, especially after this cheese and spinach box make the planet uninhabitable and we're colonizing Mars. So I'm sorry if I'm a bad person just because I don't want to pay $5 a pound for broccoli that may or may not have a poison, that may or may not affect this person that I may or may not even care about. What did my parents do? They just bought a bunch of budget-ass junk food and had the best date ever. Oh, get lost, Marty! Whoa, buddy, 6 feet. Well, what about this guy just grabbing his shit? Doesn't have a care in the world. How come you're not considering cross-contamination, seasonal veggies, rising imports, carbon footprint, NAFTA, whatever it is now, and drug cartels? And what about people that can't even afford $5 a pound? What do? They just chance it? If the pesticides don't get us, the stress alone will. If they can even get produce with all the food deserts. Oh, what a privileged piece of patience. I will be patient. Is it all because of the bees? The little tiny dying bees? I mean, maybe our planet won't be around long enough for $5 broccoli to matter, or salads for that matter, or lifelong partnerships. Look, I care for him as a person, but what is the morality of intentionally buying unorganic broccoli? the bag. No worries. Must leave. Now I'm running late for a very important date. Rhymes. I'm fine. I'm just trying my best. From a place of care, not stress. Fine. Hey, you there? Great, 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 great. I had a little hiccup at the store, but I should be there in just a second. I'm right around the corner. Okay, talk to you later. Bye. Invest one step at a time.
Oh my goodness. That was incredible. I'm seeing so many excited people in the chat, the laughter, the quotations. It's so awesome to see all this interaction. Jamie, what an incredible performance. I would love to welcome you back to our virtual stage so that we can get to know you a little bit more and understand this conscious consumer. How are you? How do you feel?
I'm great. Thanks, Christina. Yeah, that was fun.
Excellent. Oh, we're so thankful for this piece, Jamie. You've done such a wonderful job capturing so many things. And I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit about the process that you took to put this together.
Sure. I mean, it's basically my inner monologue when I'm at the grocery store. It's like, I mean, I feel like often at the grocery store, I'm in an aisle, the good music is going on in the background, and I feel like I'm in battle, like full on battle, trying to decipher all of the little, like decoding and outwitting all of the packaging, like the deceptive product packaging that basically is my inner monologue. And so I also think about, I remember as a kid, and this is probably a very romanticized version of a kid, but I remember like just my parents gracefully sweeping through the aisles, getting like the store brand stuff and not really thinking about things as much. So I guess it was kind of the combination of like my own anxiety combined with like a feeling of like there has to be a better way, I guess. And there's so much more information now. And so I just started, kind of recording what I was thinking. And luckily, this was at the same time that a friend and an amazing artist, Laura Delhauer, who's one of the panelists, approached me about developing a play to give voice to characters of climate change. And so she helped incubate this and was the first one to produce this piece. And then you approached me, and it was amazing because I always wanted to see it as sort of a filmed piece. And so it was just the perfect medium to try it out on, and you really helped develop it from there.
It also so well on camera / on Zoom. I think we're really leaning into this platform. So thank you for being game to try and mix things up a little bit.
Yeah, and huge props to you and then collaborators like my friend Matt Castanos and my partner Jonathan, who helped me film this in a grocery store, and then Kwame Brandt Pierce, who added the sound to it. So, yeah.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you. I'm curious a little bit about, what issues are driving your artistry. Right now, we're in a pandemic where we've got a lot going on this year with all of our racial and social unrest and injustice. And I'm curious, what of all the many things, what else is driving your artistry?
I mean, I think I'm always driven by looking at phenomena that I think is sort of absurd or really frustrating and trying to see if other people agree with me. I'm like, can we put this out there and discuss if and how you're also relating to this? So I think that was part of that. And I think I'm constantly driven by that. Like, I think there's a lot of things that are just so upside down or not right in this world. And so I would say that is definitely a part of this. And yeah, I mean, I really care for the planet. I really just care about rebalance and trying to find a better way and trying to find a way that's a lot less neurotic and a lot more joyous against sort of the like hyper capitalist culture that's really, you know, denigrating the people and the planet and the essential workers, as we're seeing in this time period.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I have one more question for you that's going to help sort of dive into the next section, which is with our panel. What question do you have for our panelists?
So I'm so thankful for this panelist component of it, because I don't want to leave people with the idea that, like, if you go to a grocery store, you should just, you know, tap it, like let your neuroses ride and all of the anxieties ride. I guess for me, I'm finding, and when you and I talked about this piece, we talked a lot about like, what's at the core of this? And I think it's the last beat, is that really to do it from a place of care and not from a place of stress. So for the panelists, I'm wondering, how do you find love in the efforts to care for each other and to care for the planet when it can be so easy to flip into the stress and the daunting task of it all? So yeah, that's the question that I have.
That is fantastic. Thank you for that segue into our panelists. Everyone, as we're gearing up, I'd like to invite our panelists onto our virtual stage to come on camera and off mute. For those of you who are joining us in the chat, please feel free to type in your questions as we have each one of our amazing panelists introduce themselves. So I'd like to, why don't we start with Laura Delhauer? Please introduce yourself. Let us know who you are and what lens you're looking at environmental health from.
Hi, I'm Laura Delhauer, and I'm super touched that my dear friend Jamie actually already mentioned me talking about the theater company that I created. It's a theater and media company developed to merge creative storytelling and environmentalism, and environmental activism. And so I am sort of coming to this as an environmental activist and an artist, and I have my company that merges the two. And I'm also a plant-based chef, and I'm passionate about making sure that sustainable and healthy food is accessible to all people.
Excellent, thank you. Why don't we go to Dr. Tallis?
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm sorry it got dark much quicker than I thought it would here in California, so I apologize for my lighting. I work at the interface of environmental conservation and human well-being in general, including human health and equity and justice. And I currently do that as a visiting professor at the Berkeley School of Public Health and a visiting fellow at the University of Minnesota Institute on the Environment. And I'm excited to see different expressions of these issues in different ways to dive in. And as you meet the other panelists, I'm just going to step away from my video and turn on more lights.
Thank you so much. Dr. Soda.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ami Zoda, and I'm an associate professor of environmental health at the George Washington University School of Public Health. And my work broadly seeks to advance environmental justice and health equity through innovations in research, policy, and communication. So I do a lot of peer-reviewed science on how a lot of these chemicals, whether it's pesticides or what's in plastic or what's in our beauty products, how they actually go from the products into our bodies to impact population health, always with the kind of emphasis on how those populations marginalized by inequity are impacted. But then, my work doesn't stop by doing the science. I then do a lot of active translation of the science towards action, with this eye specifically towards policy change.
Excellent. And last but certainly not least, Molly Braverman, please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. So I'm Molly Braverman, she, her, and I am the director of the Broadway Green Alliance. And we are an organization with a mission to motivate, educate, and inspire the entire theater community and its patrons to adopt environmentally friendlier practices.
Awesome. Well, we have such a breadth of knowledge here on our virtual stage tonight. So I'd like to pose, Molly, why don't we start with you? The question that Jamie posed to all of us, how do we have compassion for ourselves, but still do the work?
It's a great question. First of all, I absolutely love the show. Thank you, Jamie. I think I can relate to that all the time. So thank you for that beautiful representation. And it's a tough question. It brings to mind one of the core principles that the BJA was founded on and that I carry with me all the time, which is it's impossible to be green. Just this ideal of the perfect environmentalist, you are doing everything right. It doesn't exist because just by existing, we have a carbon footprint. And even when we're dead, we still do. So there's no escaping our impact on this earth. So it's thinking about how can we be greener tomorrow than we were today, and just focusing on what we have the power to do and moving forward. Okay, so I'm going to be greener tomorrow. What about next month? What can I keep doing? And so that's what keeps me sane. And I certainly find a lot of love and resilience in our community.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you for that, for giving us that reality check too. Dr. Tallis, would you like to give us your thought on how we are more compassionate to ourselves today, and in this endeavor?
Yes, thank you, and I agree. Thanks, Jamie, for a great show. So I am a scientist, and I have worked in policy and practice for most of my career, and so I can get very overwhelmed by all of the information, all that we do know about the challenges that we're facing and the scale of the problems. And that can be a lot to deal with. And so for me, I always try and remind myself to make space for the awe in the natural world. There's always something just blowing my mind that's either recently been discovered or that we've known for thousands of years that's really awesome in the truest sense of the word. As a quick example, several years ago, they caught footage in the Monterey Bay near where I live of this jellyfish that has 8-foot-long tentacles that are like drapes of fabric. And that just lives in my backyard, and I never knew about it. So there's so much awe to reground me in why this matters, why this is so important, and on the social side too, in what humans can do, what we have done, and what continues to show up every day. So that's a big checkpoint for me to always remind myself what this real core basis of all of this is about.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. We did get a question in the chat for you, Dr. Zoda, excuse me. The question reads, now I'm curious about how pesticides get into products. How do we protect ourselves? And asking the other panelists, I'll go ahead and ask that question after we get to this information about pesticides and how do we protect ourselves?
So the question is, how does the pesticide go from the product into our bodies, or how it gets into, sorry.
Sure. The way it reads right now is, how do pesticides get into other products? But I think we can go ahead and extrapolate and say, there was the question in the play about, is broccoli a more susceptible vegetable versus a less susceptible vegetable? So why don't we go down that path and think about how can we protect ourselves from those vegetables that are more susceptible or not?
Yeah, I think, there's some really great organizations that have developed really good consumer facing tools. And one that comes to mind is an Environmental Working Group, EWG. So they have their Dirty Dozen list and they update it pretty frequently. And that kind of helps, I think, consumers in a really smart way, just prioritize if you can only buy certain things organic, which ones to buy. Like, I think strawberries are always kind of a repeat offender, and grapes, so some of those fruits are, definitely the ones that if you're going to prioritize, to try to buy organic, because I think it's so hard to grow without, I think you have to use a lot of pesticides and they absorb them more. I think a couple of points I just want to bring up. One, we should always think about the workers because they are just a population that's really disproportionately impacted, and their families. I think a message that I always like to try to emphasize, I go around and give a lot of talks. People always get freaked out, right? I show them all this data and then they get freaked out. But, you can't shop your way out of this problem, right? So, so maybe you have some sphere of control over certain dimensions of things, but a lot of these chemicals are, they're everywhere, because you have less control, maybe what's going on in your work environment or in your school or in transit. I think we always have to think about societally, how can we kind of push the needle? Because some of these problems, especially with climate change, are just so broad that it really takes a collective action. So, I just think it's, we kind of end up going down the rabbit hole around choices. And I think there are some key things we can do about making safer choices, but we should keep kind of our eye on the prize a little bit in terms of, kind of this collective push for bigger change.
That's great. Thank you so much. I didn't know that there was a repeat offender list. And so that's really helpful. I think it's a tangible sort of thing that we can all reference and then make sure that we are using that to inform our purchases, to inform our choices, and feel a little bit more protected. We had a question for all the panelists, but I'd love for Laura to weigh in. This is a great question. What is the morality of buying inorganic broccoli from your perspective?
I love that question. I think that also ties back into Jamie's question, because the morality, I think that we can put that kind of weight on all of our decisions right now, as consumers, as conscious consumers, as people who are living in this age of information overwhelm, not just with environmentalism, though environmentalism, I think a big reason why so many of us are so passionate about it is because it does touch so many other major issues that we're facing as humanity right now and as a planet. So it can feel like it has that weight. And I think that the importance of stepping back, noticing when, so I think that information and education on these matters should be empowering and motivating. And anytime you get to the point where that's not what it is anymore, you need to take a step back. And, I think I and a lot of other people who I've worked with have dealt with certain levels of the anxiety that Jamie depicts so beautifully in the show, but even going as far as depression, and that's not helpful. We need to step back and see, as opposed to all of the things we should be doing, all of the options of things that we have, ways that we can be impactful or be less impactful. You know what I mean? And so to step back and say, okay, so what is it that I can do today? Because I can't do all the things today. I can't fix everything today, but I can step back and today I can make this decision that I know will be contributing to a better future. And I'm sure we're going to talk about call to action and things like that later, but there's lots of different things, but to realize that you can do something and not try to do everything, and inform yourself, but not inform yourself to the point where you're so overwhelmed that you feel paralyzed. Because when we feel that way, my saying that is not to downplay at all the severity of the situation of the environmental crisis, but on the contrary, it's actually, if we appreciate the severity of it, we have to also appreciate that mental health is a big part of this. And if people are so overwhelmed that they're not able to make decisions and do something because they're like, I can't do everything, and then they do nothing and they don't continue to inform themselves, then we get nowhere. So I think that I love how beautifully the piece wraps up when that final line where he says, invest one step at a time. Like, I bought the organic, that's the one thing he could do today, and he did it, and it is us, one step at a time. So
That's great. Thank you so much. I'm getting so many questions. This is so exciting. Everyone's really engaged and enjoying where we're going with this. I have a question here that's around the connection between farming and the grocery store. How do we know that farms are doing things right for both their employees and the planet? I'm curious whoever would like to go first on that one. I'm open.
I'll just say that one of the things that I think is really helpful, and speaking of like one small thing that you can do, not actually pretty big deal, but one thing that you can do, one tangible thing that you can do, is to look up where your local farmers market or green market is, and try to support local farmers. If you're able to look up a local CSA, that's community subsidized agriculture, and then you can invest in a local farm, and you can pay in at the beginning of the season, and then you're investing in those farmers, their grow for that season, and then every week for the whole season you'll get produce back from them, and some of them do eggs and things like that too. And that way you get to know your farmers. You can ask them all the questions. You can ask them about their practices. You can decide, ask them if they do organic and what their practice is, because like the organic certification can be expensive for some farmers. And so they may not choose to get the certification, but they do use organic practices. So I just think the more that we can get to know our farmers personally, that's a big help.
Fantastic. That's actually really great. I'm learning so much. I love these because I get to learn, I'm a public health professional, but I have a breadth of information, and now I get to like really dive deep into these topics. So this is awesome. Thank you for that. What is one thing? Oh, this is funny because I'm going to do a call to action at the end. So this one question is around what's the one thing we can all do to protect our planet in 2021? Let's hold on to that and think about it and bring it back at the end. Someone else is curious about the difference between compostable items and biodegradable items. Does anyone have an understanding of the difference between those two?
I believe that everything that is compostable is biodegradable, but everything that is biodegradable is not necessarily compostable. So you can look up composting requires the use of green and brown compost. So like your kitchen scraps, those are green compost. And then your like yard scraps or like fallen leaves and things like that, dry things like that, those are brown compost. And so it depends on if you live, I just transitioned from a decade in New York City composting through the city's program. And then now I live in California and I've got a backyard and I'm composting on my own here. So if you're just dealing with your kitchen scraps, wherever you're doing local compost should have information on their website about what they accept. Yeah, so if that's helpful.
Awesome.
Oh, I'll add
Molly,
quickly.
Yeah,
I put in the chat for everyone a link to a series we did on biodegradable products and why biodegradable isn't always what you think it is. And it's a really great breakdown with from a great New York Times article. So I recommend it.
And also on your Instagram page, there is a little swiper, a couple, maybe like 3 or 4 pages of just information about biodegradable and compostable products. So definitely check out the Broadway Green Alliance on Instagram because they have a lot of information there as well. We have a question here that I'm wondering, Dr. Soda, from your perspective, there's a lot of folks who are feeling like they really don't understand or have the space to be critical of their purchases. And so how can we make that more accessible to people? How can we engage folks in a way that empowers them instead of making them feel overwhelmed?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of organizations that are out there that are trying to provide this information in different formats to different audiences. So like another one that's come out it's called Because Health. And what's really cool about them is they have a really active presence on Instagram. And so they're kind of very Instagram friendly, and it's all about kind of very digestible amounts of information around smart consumption. The other thing that people may or may not know about is something called the Collaborative on Health and the Environment. And so that's like an open collaborative, and they host webinars on a whole series of environmental health topics. Everything from like, they're doing a big series right now on how the generational problems with reproduction that we're seeing, like with declining sperm counts and the role of different chemicals in that kind of, epidemic, to, what kind of PFAS chemicals are we actually finding in food packaging? And so kind of related to the other topic, a lot of these like paper products that are meant to be compostable are actually treated with these harmful perfluorinated chemicals, and so actually when you compost them, right, you're putting those chemicals like back into the agricultural system. And so and they're endocrine disruptors, and they disrupt the immune system, and may also impact metabolic or cardiometabolic outcomes. So, sometimes there's a lot of unintentional consequences of us like trying to do good things, but not really understanding the full repercussions. And so that's just another thing I wanted to highlight. So like those bowls that are actually used like at the Whole Foods salad bar, those like moldy fiber bowls. So a lot of those are actually treated with these PFAS chemicals, but they're noted as compostable. And so,
interesting.
Yeah, but they're treated because they're treated kind of with these stain resistant chemicals, so that the food and the grease doesn't not leak. But so that's those are other dimensions of things to think about, is the whole kind of packaging side of it.
This is a follow-up question for me personally, because I'm interested. Is there a way to tell, let's say you're going to the store, you have to get not plastic, but paper bowls or what have you for a party that you're throwing, right? And you're not going to do all the dishes. You've made that choice and you're going to do it. Is there a particular brand or a particular recommendation that you would have in searching for the right brand for something like that? If you were to have to go convenient, how could you do it in the best way possible?
Yeah, I think generally those aren't so much the problem. And I think anything that's not wax coated would probably be the way to, like basic paper plates, I think are okay. These like kind of these like whatever, fast casual structures, food structures that have kind of come about are a little bit more of the problem. But, so the problem though really is, right, just to kind of take our, kind of go back to why we're in this position in the first place, is that a lot of this stuff is really poorly regulated. And so just the way the laws are written, we like manufacturers don't necessarily even need to know what's in these products, never mind report them to the government or to individuals. So basically you have kind of scientists and advocates kind of trying to fill in the blanks. And it does go back to kind of, we really don't regulate chemicals in our everyday products very well in this country. And, basically there is sort of a notion that things are safe until otherwise proven otherwise, but really it should be the other way around.
Gotcha. Okay, that's helpful. So if we see, again, voting has come up. So as we see different legislation or something like that come up, to be a conscious voter, to be understand what those ballot measures or things might be. We have another question. I'm wondering, Dr. Tallis, if you could weigh in. The question is around sustainable food systems. Are there sustainable food systems that are scalable through a consumer movement? Should we be latching on to something in particular?
Yes, I think there are several good examples of sustainable approaches to agriculture that have grown to at least a reasonable scale penetration in markets through consumer pressure. So one that might be familiar to people is Shade Coffee or Rainforest Certified Coffee, where it was really consumer pressure and then a certification on a bag. So you can identify which coffees have that certification, and then you can prefer them with your pocketbook. There's another good program like that for seafood that I want to make sure people know about. It's called Seafood Watch, and it's one of the resources on the website for tonight's event. And that's for any seafood. It gives you information as a consumer about which fisheries are sustainably managed now. And there are different ones for different regions of the country. Some of them are in Spanish as well. So it's a really good resource for you to be able to say, okay, I really want shrimp tonight. Which one can I go for? Or which of these more affordable fish is also more sustainable? And so the other thing about those types of approaches is that you can then be empowered with that information and go to a sushi restaurant or to Walmart and say, why aren't you carrying this fish that I know is better? I would like to buy it. Can you please stock it in the future? And that sends a signal to the company and to the purchasers that there's customer demand for that type of production. And then I would say from the flip side, top-down pressure is also useful from the regulation side, as was just mentioned on the chemical front. There's very, very powerful things that the government can do to incentivize different practices. And there's a lot of interest right now in regenerative agriculture or soil health, which are broad terms for things like using cover crops or rotating crops or doing less tillage on farms that are better environmentally and could have some health benefits through lower needs for fertilizers or pesticides. And we can encourage our elected officials to support those and to move agricultural subsidies, through the Farm Bill to those kinds of practices. So from both sides, whether you're using your voice or your dollars, there certainly are examples people can use now where you can make better choices and informed choices and put more pressure on people in positions to make those grow even further.
Fantastic. We have two questions that I think are great. I'm curious if there are if there's any legislation in particular that any of you are looking forward to as a follow-up to this conversation around top-down versus bottom-up. Molly, did you have something that you nodded, and so I thought perhaps you wanted to jump in.
Sure. I mean, I'll turn to the scientists for this one, but I will say that the BGA is partnered with the NRDC, and they have a fantastic source of email lists and also on social that's constantly talking about the legislation and the things that they are supporting. So if you're looking for a hub of that, I recommend the NRDC.
Would you mind telling us what the NRDC stands for?
Oh, sure. Natural Resources Defense Council.
Excellent. Awesome. Thank you. There's a question here around the environmental impacts of COVID that COVID will have on our food sources. There's lots of plastic packaging and other environmental health concerns. So do we have an understanding yet of what the impacts of COVID might be with, the added packaging and or the waste that we all are producing now with masks and gloves and things of that nature?
Well, I mean, I think this is in a slightly different direction, but we definitely saw earlier there were big impacts to our food system because one of the main sources of the outbreaks were actually meat packing and meat processing plants. Right. And so because workers were just working very, in real close quarters, there were no occupational regulations put in place because OSHA has been just completely absent from controlling COVID. So OSHA is Occupational Safe and Healthy Administration. So they're the ones that kind of are in charge of worker health and safety. And so these meat packing and meat processing plants, like in the Dakotas and stuff, like they're kind of ground zero. Not only are the workers themselves, are there high infection rates, but it's also a source of community transmission. So, early on, there were all kinds of delays of getting meat across the country. And I have a very good friend who actually has a business around sustainable meat in North Carolina. And so she's kind of a middleman with like rural farmers and getting them to grow the meat in a certain way, and then like linking that with restaurants and stuff, and consumers. And I mean, she was just telling me like how much her business exploded back in the spring because kind of the more reliable systems, there were breakdowns, right? And so I think these big systems that rely on complex transportation chains and big factories are much more vulnerable, than kind of small scale outfits. So I mean, I think that's one dimension for sure. And the other thing, too, this is a little bit different, but as somebody who thinks about how some of this stuff affects health, I mean, people, one, they're in their home so much more, often poorly ventilated. They're using like so many more disinfectants and chemicals and all kinds of cleaning products and all of that stuff, right? Like so much more. So, there are those concerns. And then the third thing that people probably haven't thought about, but people like me are already thinking about is, there's how things in the environment may like exacerbate COVID. So whether that's air pollution, which, disproportionately impacts racial ethnic minorities who are also disproportionately impacted by COVID, or how these like hormone mimicking chemicals can actually interfere with, actually reduces the efficacy of vaccines potentially. So there's those type of interactions too. I see your eyes, Christina. You're like, wow.
Definitely. This is, I mean, it's so big, right? Laura, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think all that's really important to be aware of. And I think there are so many different things that, anytime we see a major shift, we've obviously never seen a major shift quite like COVID, but in my lifetime. But there are going to be additional, environmental impacts. And I think that like we were talking before about overwhelm, I think that this is such an overwhelming year of all of these different problem after problem after problem after problem. And I think that it's good to be aware of those things. Also, we also saw this huge decrease in travel and like carbon emissions dropping because of that. Like there's a lot of different things on both ends that, I mean, all of the individually wrapped in plastic stuff that's happening that was never, wrapped in plastic before in the bulk section and all these things, like my safe haven of not using plastic and bringing my own reusable bag to the bulk section is no more in the year 2020. And so I think we can get really overwhelmed in those things. So just to say that, again, another like an opportunity to not focus on like, 20 more bad things, but to have more information. And I say this carefully because I know as someone who lost my home during COVID because of financial insecurity, and I was or my own financial situation because of COVID, I was forced out of my home of 10 years. And so I completely sympathize and empathize with people who are really struggling right now and who are like, I can't focus on being green. I can't focus on, but honestly, any opportunity that anyone has this year to slow down and to breathe, because I think that a big part of the problem of how we ended up in this situation, which is very complicated, but like the exploitation of animals, the exploitation of the natural world, so many people don't even know really where COVID came from. And there's all this information. I'm sure obviously Amy and Heather could speak to this better as far as the concern about future pandemics and things like that if we continue to exploit the natural world. But I think that this is an opportunity, again, for information or education that is empowering, not just overwhelming and scary. This is an opportunity. Those of us who are spending so much more time at home, which I think is most of us, being able to learn more about this and figure out what the actions are that you can take, and maybe more that you can take now that you couldn't take when your life was go, go, go all the time. Mm-hmm. I just want to encourage.
That's actually a good plug, Laura, for our resource page. So on our website, there is a list of resources that were sourced from our panelists today, as well as other organizations. Our Climate Voices is one that we've been chatting with and getting their information out there. So please definitely take a look at our website and take a look at the resources that's below the information around the event. I have two other questions that are in here, and I'd love for Molly to take a crack at. How did you get into this career? I know that yours is a little unique, right? You're on the cusp of arts and environmental justice, similar to Laura, but from a more part that you're like your organization is a partner. So can you tell us a little bit about Broadway Green Alliance, and then also how did you get into this?
Sure. I love this question because I like to use myself as an example of having not had no idea I would wind up in the environmental sector, but it's never too late. And so you don't, if you're out there right now and you're like, my job has nothing to do with the environment. It does. And that's what's so cool. So I started my career as a stage manager, and I still do that. I was actually working on Hamilton on tour right when the show shut down. So it's, that's where I came from, the theater. And the beauty of the theater, as we saw here tonight, is that it has a huge hand in working towards making a better world, right? The arts are so important in communication and in doing what the arts do best, bring people together, build community, build resilience, applaud when people are doing things great. And so I came to it from that perspective. And when I was a stage manager on the tour of Wicked, I became a volunteer for the Broadway Green Alliance. And I was a volunteer green captain. That's one of our main programs, is we have a green captain on every show on Broadway, tours in over 90 colleges and university theater programs all over. And the green captain is just a volunteer, just raising your hand saying, I care about this. I want to make a difference in whatever way I can on my show, in my college, wherever I am. And so I was that for 3 years on the road with Wicked. And traveling around the country, I learned a lot. I grew up in Philadelphia, I lived in New York, but all of a sudden I was placed in new environments and got to see the different ways that climate change was impacting those communities, and the way that our show came in and had a footprint and took up space. And that really got me thinking and more involved about the environment. Again, I didn't consider myself an environmentalist until recently. And it's such an accessible way, as I think, Laura, you were the one who said that so many issues intersect in the environmental movement. And that to me is so critical, because there's so much room for partnership and collaboration with people who care so deeply about different critical issues. So that's, anyone, my pitch is anyone can be an environmentalist, and you can enter this career and these many different ways you can be engaged in, from so many different perspectives and from what drives your passion.
I love that. That is exactly what Elevate is all about, right? It's this driving of public health. It's this driving of information, and it's about giving you all in the audience an opportunity to understand a little bit more. We are going to have to, unfortunately, start to wind down our evening tonight. But I have two more questions. One is, and maybe Dr. Tallis, you could speak to this. Is there a way to be environmentally friendly while still eating meat? We know that there's a cry for stopping or moving to plant-based diet. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are, since I know that you do eat meat.
I do eat meat. I was vegetarian for about 5 years, and then I had a moment where I thought about the tofu I was eating, and that it was probably from soybeans that were driving deforestation in the Amazon and being shipped to China to be processed and then shipped back to the United States with a very large carbon footprint. So there is very good information on this now. I'll share just a couple of stats, but the main point is eating a little meat is fine, eating less is better, and eating no beef is the best. So if you're going to move away from something, move towards less beef. Just some quick facts. There was a great study a few years ago that really laid this out. So per calorie, beef compared to chicken or pork uses 28 times more land to produce, 11 times more water, 5 times more greenhouse gas emissions, and 6 times more fertilizer. And then if you want to go towards plants, which if you're going to eat less beef for a day, maybe you could have some plants instead. Per calorie, beef compared to plants uses 160 times more land, 8 times more water, 11 times more greenhouse gas impact, and 19 times more fertilizer. So these are tremendously big differences among the protein options that we have, and even among the meats. So chicken or pork over beef is a great choice. And fish is a great choice, especially if you use that Seafood Watch card and go for the more sustainably managed fisheries. So there's tons of flexibility, and at a global scale and even at a national scale, these choices really do matter in terms of the environmental resources that are needed and the health impacts. So keep in mind also those proteins have different health challenges along with them, again, with red meat being a tough one. So go for the white meat or the plants.
I love it. Thank you. That's so powerful. All those statistics were on speaker view, so they couldn't see my eyes as you were reading those, but those stats are incredibly powerful. And so if we could all think about, eating one less day of meat a week or a month or something, it clearly will have an impact ultimately if we're all collectively moving in the same direction. So as our last question for the evening, I would love to go back to one of our audience members asked this question. What is one thing that each of us can do differently to help protect the planet in 2021? And so I'd love to do a little round robin very quickly to give your call to action. Is there an activity? Is there an organization to donate to? Is there a legislation that we should be voting for? Things like that. Let us know. Dr. Soto, why don't we start with you?
Okay, I'll have two, if that's okay. So one, I do think if we can all be more intentional about our plastic consumption, it does really just feel like it's going in the wrong direction. And, it is kind of a source of, I think, human health and global imbalance, and feels something like kind of doable on an everyday level, just to be intentional about our plastic consumption. Another thing that I just kind of want to bring people's attention to, right? I think part of it is energizing yourself with new innovative ideas from others about kind of solutions. And to that end, I run a program called Agents of Change in Environmental Health. And so we're working with a broad array of scientists, all of whom are from underrepresented backgrounds. And we're teaching them, we work with them, we workshop their ideas, and we then publish them in a really accessible way with a media organization called Environmental Health News. And so I invite you to engage with the work they're putting out. It's, they're writing it, they have really fresh new ideas. I do think the young people are the future. And these are really neglected voices. And, they come from and they work with some of the communities that are most impacted, but also have, decades of solutions, right, that we just often haven't listened to. So I think, just trying to find ways to stay hopeful by exposing yourself to kind of new ideas.
Fantastic. And that's actually how I found you, was through the Agents of Change in the Environmental Health News. So I recommend that for sure. Laura, what is your call to action briefly?
I want to say a million, but I definitely, I would echo plastic consumption. And I'll just also reference, Christina mentioned earlier, if you go to the event page for the event today, there on Elevate's website, there is a list of documentaries. I highly recommend documentaries. I have many good friends and acquaintances in the documentary filmmaking world, and I know at least one person on most of the documentaries listed, who worked on each of the documentaries listed on the website. And that can be a really great way to empower yourself with resources, because, and there's one all about plastic consumption. There's several that could really help empower you when it comes to food consumption, and specifically the meat thing I know can be very tricky. I made the transition into an entirely plant-based lifestyle about 9 years ago, but I have many people in my life who have made adjustments where it's only partially plant-based, more plant-based. And so I would say that empowering people to think about one thing that is feels doable, and that you know that you can feel good about making that change. And so maybe it's cutting out meat, maybe it's cutting out beef, but maybe it's just adding more plant-based meals to your diet. And I'm a huge proponent of lentils, because they're not meat, they're not a fake meat, they're not a tofu, they're not to put any of those things down, but if you haven't gotten into lentils, get into lentils. So that would be my big call to action, is just learning more about your consumption when it comes to food and the things you buy, so that you can vote with your dollars. And a lot of those documentaries are great resources to help you get excited about a change that you can make.
Love it. Thank you. Shout out to lentils. I do enjoy them. Molly, what's your call to action for our audience?
Where my call to action is to talk about it. Keep talking about what's happening, what you're doing, what you're scared about, what you're hopeful about in terms of the climate crisis. Just like, I have the, Ryan's inner voice in my head all the time, but what I'm trying to get better at is voicing that out loud, right? With my family, on various Zooms that we now do, whatever it is, if your platform, social media, talk about it wherever you are able. There's a lot of us who are in this work. The Zoom is incredible. But there's lots of people who as we see, are scared. It's overwhelming. It's too much. And so by talking about it, we can grapple with those fears and see what's doable, especially in this moment of pause that we're in, where we're home. It gives us a chance to reset and set new goals. And so talk about it.
Thank you so much. Love it. And Dr. Tallis.
Yes, Laura and Molly took my top two. So I'll go to diversifying your opportunities, but just second those calls. They're great ones. So thank you for putting them out. I'm going to say my passion is really about the intersection of these issues, climate and health and justice. And so for me, it's just undeniably clear that the key thing to take action on is the energy transition, helping our country and others move as quickly as possible, faster than previously humanly possible, through the clean energy transition. And we didn't talk a lot about that today, but there's parts of that that can go through the food system. And those are important, like the things we talked about for food choice, like beef, that are driving a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. But you can also do things like check your own energy plan and see if you have a clean power option. And if you don't, call your provider and ask why not. And if they say there's not a price point for it, if you can, offer to pay more. Lots of places have that option now. And if you don't have that flexibility with your pocketbook, still use your voice and let them know you care about that. And the same way with your elected officials, let them know this is your top priority, because it's the biggest driver of emissions in the country. It's also the biggest driver of air pollution, which, disproportionately kills African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians in our country at the rate of 60,000 people a year. So this is a major intersection issue, and you do all have the ability to use your voice on that in a pretty specific way, and choose options when you can, to purchase clean energy and help it move faster.
Fantastic. Oh my gosh, we have some really exciting things. No more plastic, talk about it, go plant-based, and then think about your energy consumption. That is all incredible. I really appreciate the bite-sized nuggets that we got, and the fact that those are all tangible things that we can actually think through. Again, on the Elevate website, we do have resources that were sourced from our panelists tonight. Unfortunately, we are out of time today, so I would like to bring us to a close. I'd like to just let you all know I'm so excited, because this is exactly what Elevate is supposed to be doing. We are bringing stories. Who knew that a 15-minute play could bring you into such a layered and rich discussion? This topic, just like many in public health, is multifaceted. As Dr. Tallis just said, there are lots of intersections here that we can definitely look through. And the solutions are multifaceted because we had 4 very different ideas on how to take action ourselves. And tonight we were able to think about, how as individuals can we make change? So I definitely encourage you all again to go on your own, go to our website, go to other sites that are available to you. I know that we've been dropping them into the chat, so please explore further. I want to thank our panelists this evening, Dr. Soda, Dr. Tallis, Molly, Laura. Thank you so much for being in community with us tonight. It was a pleasure to get to know you, to have your knowledge and your light and your energy on our stage. Jamie Roach, oh my gosh, what a gift you are and your talent. I am just so thankful for this play. It was wonderful. It was a humorous way for us to get into the discussion, and it was a fabulous performance to boot. Elevate is so honored to have all of your participation. We're building community here, y'all. I don't know if you feel it, but I feel the power of theater right now. I feel the power and the healing possibilities. And I'm thrilled to bring you live virtual performances for free across our New York community and beyond. I hope that you laughed a little tonight. I hope that you enjoyed and that you learned a little something. Remember, we can't do this without you, our Elevate family. So if you liked what you saw this evening, please go to our website and make a tax-deductible donation. Finally, I'd like to remind you all that we are only halfway through our winter series. We have 2 final parts in January and February in 2021. So mark your calendars for January 14th. We will have part 3 of the Elevate Winter series. It's called The Health of Our Protest. We'll be taking a look at the Black Lives Matter movement, and we'll be exploring the idea of Black fatigue through a compilation of performances by Yali Soweto Kamara, Ashley Winkfield, and Marcus John. Details will be up on our website very, very soon. So with that, I want to thank you all again for being here. I am sending you all light and love and health this holiday season. Please remember to protect your community, protect our community. Keep your distance, wear your mask, stay safe. Good night, everyone. Be well and elevate.